smoking. But the men would come here just to stay in the shade, have a welcome place to be, to get away from the hotel, get away from the hospital. So this is a very central location. So these very rooms is where they.
I think it was the.
It was the Masonic Hall.
Masonic Hall.
Yeah.
On Bay Street.
On Bay Street. Oh,
It
okay.
wasn't built in 1952.
Oh, it wasn't. Okay. And where is the Masonic Hall? Is that still standing?
Yeah, right up at the railroad line.
Okay. By the keys? Well made. Oh, well made. Okay. Okay, John Ramsey. Oh, the Masonic. Okay. And James, you had a question?
Yeah, you noted all the U-boats, but you said the Italian submarines were here. What were they called? Like their abbreviations?
It's a good question. They were called, the technical word escapes me at the moment, but they were part of a flotilla called Beta Somme. Beta was for boat for Bordeaux, which is where they were based, and Somme was Somme or Ghibli, which is the Italian word for submarine. So it was the Beta Somme flotilla, and it was very interesting because they were patrolled by Germans, but they had their own Italian crew, their own Italian menus, their own Italian way of life, and they were sent on lone wolf patrols. They were also very good at refueling each other. So they were very cooperative and very, they were also very aggressive in their own right. But they were called Beta Somme, and they were called IT, but they unlike the Germans, it wasn't U-152, it was called IT, and then Enrico Tazzoli, or the Finzi, or just Giuseppe Morano, or whatever the name is. Eric, please? Oh, I'm sorry.
5 quick stories, please. As a boy, I used to look forward to the barbershop being full of people waiting so I could sit there and hear the chatter. And old Sammy Cartwright, some of you know Cartwright, about the Subway Theater. He told me one time that the German submarines had a connection with Long Island and used to get them fresh nuts. And I bounced that off Horace Russell one time, and I hope you don't want to offend anybody here, but he said that definitely somewhere amongst the Roman Catholic priestly brothers, there was some kind of a German connection ashore, somewhere down there in the Catholic Islands. We may never know any more than these wild stories, but what keeps haunting me is everybody insists that there were no German submarines sunk in the Bahamas. I know a policeman, but I'm going treasure hunting to find a submarine. And I know somebody who insists that he knows where a submarine is. And interesting because it crossed where it is, you might not expect it to be. But there was an old man, Weldon Roberts. I don't know how many people remember Weldon Roberts, who owned the key of the northern end of the Exumas, who says that he was on a British destroyer. And then the other story, which again needs a treasure hunt, also by the Nixons, Henry, Sammy, one of their brothers, Willis, who I knew when I was a boy. They were at the extreme northeast end of Inagua, and they heard an engine, and they went crawling over to the edge of the cliff, and they say that there was a German submarine right along the cliff there. The ocean comes right up, and they were working, there was mechanical activity going. It took them 3 days to get back to Matthew Town. And the planes were sent from Guantanamo, and they always understood that it had been bombed. Now, if it's true that it's there, somewhere along the cliffs of northeast pointing out, which is a windswept, north-forsaken place. Apparently there was something wrong with generators and so forth, and they were all working and so forth. But these are oral history stories. But anyway, that's part of the submarine LORE of the Bahamas.
Well, thank you. That's a good story. And I should, if there's nothing else we can carry away from this, by the way, Reverend Carl Campbell was here from the Methodist Church. The Methodist minister in Hopetown took in over 20 survivors and were very instrumental in letting the men send telegrams home and do a lot of very Christian, as were a number of denominations. And that comes to the larger point, is that I think in a way we've done ourselves a disservice as Bahamians by saying, oh, you know, so-and-so cooperated and so-and-so, and which is untrue, when the real truth is that we helped immensely. These poor, disheveled, starving, naked men that had no money and nothing to their name, that were part of the Allied cause against Hitler, and we gave them everything they needed and more, and got them on their way, and enabled them to fight again. And really, and that includes, there's an African American who buried in Athens, who was buried by the local black minister, and the captain of the ship, on the death certificate which I found, he put relationship to deceased, and he could have put anything, employer, captain, master, any of that, and he put friend. You know, there's a human element to it all too. And so there's this poor African American steward buried in Athens at Hard Hill. There's this Norwegian and a lonely grave in Abaco, and you know, it's truly, the true story is the Bahamians have a lot to be proud of, and they did a really great job in helping in their small way, in their only way they could. And you know, there were a lot of attacks, there were a lot of German submarines, especially in the Windward Passage. There were a lot of air attacks and genuine sightings and attacks. There's a lot of reward money for the first person to find a submarine. So hopefully this brings the discourse, opens the discourse, so someone else will write a better book. Sorry, Peter, do you have a quick question?
I was going to say that I was a child at QC during the war, and we had a U-boat drill. That there was a scare that the U-boats would come over the bar and fire cannons at the castle. And so we were all lined up on the southern side of the northern wall of the castle. We did that on a couple of occasions, not too long.
Exciting for a school child, yeah.
But what would you do if
You want to perform the drill right now?
It would be out of the way, we're going to discover that shell.
Thank you all for coming. We've done a lot better than my last talk, so I really appreciate you coming.
They bring up another point, you know, researching during the wartime Tribune, etc. I found where everybody in March 1944 had a thumbprint on an identity card with the identity, blackouts and all kinds of things that we had in Britain. I didn't realize that they had. The other thing Eric mentioned, and Gail, I think you should recommend this, is there is a huge amount of material in PR, or as it was, the National Archives of Britain, on the RAF, the building of the field, and periodically I get questions, there was a guy who wants to know if there's any drawings of Pleasantville, you know, the airfield as it was there any drawings or maps and that kind of thing. I say, well, there might be some of the lands and surveys. But I'm sure there will be some.
these records you're talking about, they're not in the seal increases the major thing that we have on that.
No, they're not in the seal 23. They're like RAF records or War Office records or something like that.
It would be under Army.
I can't remember what it was now, but it would be easy.
How that
For instance, what Eric says, I managed to find that on the first flight that took place from Windsor Field, they took the Duke over Harbour Island on a little ride. Because when I was writing the Harbour Island story, that was interesting. But Eric, thanks.
We want to do a nice field trip. There's a place just south of the airport, Rockwood's Field. You can still find copper machine gun cases. So on the field, you should bring it up. But you can still find the casings there. The train, and clearing out in the continent.
Yeah, there's a lot.
when there's so much more to find
There's so much on Bahamian history. I mean, I'm learning all kinds of things. I get so many emails from some of the cranky, but others are really interesting. The only other thing I'd like to say is that I need to put out a call for papers for the journal. If you have an article here for this year's journal, I'll put that out in the news. Don't forget the AGM next week, next Thursday the 19th, and have a very good evening.